Folks at home, welcome back to the Crimson Oak Pond, and it took us about 6 months to get this pond built and full of water, and all that hard work has finally paid off, and we're at the best part, and that's adding the fish. So we're going to be adding 10,000 fish today, and also, if you missed the previous video, we just got our cabin installed out at the farm, and we're going to be announcing which one of you gets to come spend the weekend at the cabin this summer. And we're also going to be installing a Simply Safe security system, so we've got a lot of good things coming. Let's jump right into it. Alright, the fish truck is here, and I'm going to take a quick second to explain the 3 different phases of stocking a new pond. So the first phase is stocking the bluegills and fathead minnows. And you want to do that in the winter time, and this gives these young fish plenty of time to acclimate to the pond and find the hiding spots before the bass are put in. And we stocked 6,000 fathead minnows and 6,000 bluegills back in February. Now the second phase, and what we're going to be doing today, is stocking threadfin shad. Now this is another forage fish for the bass, but unfortunately threadfins don't do too good acclimating to a new pond when the weather's cold, so it's best to add them in the spring. But there is one key tip I want to give you all. If you're ever adding threadfins to a pond, it's best to get them in before the full moon in May, because that full moon will typically trigger the shad spawn, and so we're putting around 10,000 shad in late April. And if they spawn before the bass get here, those numbers could double or triple. So spring is the perfect time where it's not too hot or cold, and you get the best bang for your buck. And then the third phase is obviously going to be stocking the bass in our pond. And those little guys should be hatching any day now, and they'll keep them at the hatchery until they're around 2 inches, and then we'll stock those in late May or early June. And when those small bass get added to the pond, the first forage fish they're going to hit are the fathead minnows. They're a little bit slower, and they don't hide as well as bluegills or shad, so they'll eat those pretty heavily until they get up to around 4 or 5 inches, and then at that point they're big enough and everything's fair game. Alright, we got Southeastern Pond here today, and they've got us 2 tubs of threadfin shad. He's got everything ready, and it's a quick process where they just flush them out of their tanks down into the pond. That is a bass buffet. And again, that's another reason you put these forage fish in before the predators are here, because I can guarantee you, if bass were in the pond, they would be up here gorging themselves. But you can see we got a good variety of size. Looks like from around 1 inch up to 3 inches. Time for the second bucket. And man, that is a lot of fish. A lot of hard work to get us to this point, but I'm excited because that puts us one step closer to the bass going in here in a few weeks. So I'm definitely impressed with the survival rate. That means we got some good healthy fish, and for those of you that know threadfin shad, they are absolutely the most finicky fish and hard to keep alive. But I'll keep checking back on these over the next couple days. But just from my experience in the past, anytime you add 10,000 new bait fish to a pond, some sort of predator is going to show up. So I set up a night lapse, and we're going to try to watch the pond over the next day and see if anybody comes to snack on these shad. Got a cool shot of the moon tonight and the sun following up right behind it, and the first predator into the pond at daylight is a blue heron, making his laps around. Oh, it looks like he found a little school of them. And unfortunately, that's part of nature. Birds are going to get their fair share of them. No, he got a double up. 2 at a time. So here's a couple of cool still shots I got from that video. And one thing I'm thinking about doing is printing some wildlife photos from around the pond and putting them up in the cabin. And speaking of the cabin, if you missed our last video, we got a new cabin brought into the farm, and I asked you all to help me name it, and whoever's name I chose is going to get to come spend a weekend in it this summer. So we had over 14,000 comments, and I read every single one of them, but let's just go through a few of my favorite names. The first one is the Bass Shack. I think that would be a pretty fitting name. Next up, the Crimson Cave. I like that one. And a shout out to our 2 owls, Hooter's Hut or Capone's Cabin. I also like the Sunfish Shack and the Owl's Nest, because as you all know, the owl's been using it as his perch. And the Crimson Cottage was another good name. But out of all of the comments, there were 2 names that were definitely suggested the most. And the first was the Crimson Oak Lodge, and I really love this name, but I feel like a lodge is a little bit bigger building, and we may build something out here that's a little bigger in the future, so we may save that name for a future lodge. And the name that we decided to choose for the cabin is going to be the Crimson Cabin. Short and sweet, perfect fit for this small cabin. And we had over 300 people suggest that name, so I put them all in a random generator. And the winner is Brady Robinson. So Brady, reach out to us and we'll get you set up for this summer. And the fine folks over at Simply Safe are going to help us keep our cabin secure, so we're going to go through a quick setup and installation. It is a full home security system that includes motion detectors, glass break sensors, temperature, water, and it even has the panic button. The first thing we have to set up is the base station, and that's basically the brains of the operation. Gotta admit, the Crimson cabin has a good ring to it. So we got Liz helping me set up some motion detectors, and everything's extremely simple. You can either use sticky pads or screws, and we're going to get these set up to cover motion throughout all parts of the cabin. And Simply Safe has an app that makes it easy to set up these new devices.
Water sensor added.
You just hit the connect button, it registers the device and then lets you name it and gives you instructions on where to put it. Next up, we're going to get the window sensors installed. They also have a key fob that you can put on the keychain and use to turn the security system on and off, and it also has a panic button on the top. You can press that for 2 seconds.
Add key fob.
Alright, next up we're setting up an indoor camera. Got it pulled up on the app and it's a crystal clear video. So this is the one I'm excited about. It's an outdoor camera and we're going to mount it right here in this spot. And most of you have seen the owl that is using the cabin as his perch. He sits right here above where this camera is going to be. And I'm going to do my best to get a close-up shot of him at night. Alright, so we're about done with the setup. We got the motion detect, the smoke and CO2 alarms up there. We got the panic button up high, so Sarah can't reach it. And then all of the windows have those sensors on them. And this also includes a doorbell camera that we're going to get mounted right here. So folks, I would definitely recommend the Simply Safe security system. It's extremely easy to set up. It costs less than $1 a day. And there's no contracts involved. And if you're interested, you can save 20% on a Simply Safe security system when you sign up for the interactive monitoring plan and get the first month for free. Check out the link simplysafe.com/BamaBass to learn more. Alright folks, I just received a package from the taxidermist that I've been waiting 18 months to get. It's a couple of what I call dueling bluegills. Let's open it up and check it out. Check that out, folks. Let me go ahead and get it completely unboxed. That is such a cool mount for so many reasons. So for a quick backstory on this, Liz and I both caught our biggest bluegill ever about 3 years ago, and it was out of the same hole. They both weighed over a pound, and Liz's was 1 ounce bigger than mine. And since those two fish lived together, I wanted to get a replica made of them fighting over a worm, because you know it happens so many times. And that's one of the coolest features about this entire mount, is that this fish is supported by that worm. And not only that, it's a 360 mount, so you can put it on a coffee table, and no matter which angle you're at, it's painted all the way around. Got the lily pads. I think we're going to leave it on a table set up over here in this corner. That's a perfect fit for it. We also just got a largemouth bass mounted chasing a bluegill, and we also have the antler chandelier up. Feel like it goes perfect with the cabin. Now, since we've started this pond build, we've gotten dozens of cool nighttime shots. Things like deer swimming through the pond and a lot of other cool shots, but this one has to be one of my favorite. So just your typical night here, Al Capone sitting on top of the cabin, and you can see a small fox start coming into the picture. And we've had a fox come through from time to time, and at this point it looks like he's just kind of playing, investigating, maybe doing some nighttime hunting. But let's just sit back and watch what unfolds. Got him. That was a crazy shot of the owl flying down and flipping the fox over. And you can tell he's pretty stunned right now. I think at first he didn't really know what happened. But then at this point, I'm pretty sure he sees the owl in the tree right above him. And I don't think he knows what to do. And that's one of the things I'm so surprised about, is how aggressive the owls are. Because you would definitely think that a fox versus an owl, that a fox would definitely have a fair shot. But you can tell he doesn't want anything to do with the owl, and he's going to try to slip out of there. And the owl pounces on him again. At this point, you can tell the poor little fox, he's definitely worried. And I think now he's going to try to lay down and hide in the grass. But that didn't work either. He said it's time to get out of here. Looks like the owl successfully defended his turf. Alright folks, now we're going to take a quick look at the backyard pond and check in on Bonnie and Clyde and the rest of the bluegills. Did a little spring cleaning around the waterfall and everything's looking good. Now we're going to do a quick underwater feeding video, and I brought some of the Aquamax pellets that we've been feeding the young bluegill out at the 5-acre pond. I wanted to try those in the backyard because we've never fed them these pellets in this pond. Oh wow, Bonnie's showing a little bit of aggression there towards the bluegill. But you can tell the smaller fish that are the golden shiners are starting to eat the pellets. And it looks like the bluegills like them too, so we may swap over to the Aquamax at both of our ponds. And I'm going to keep the underwater cameras rolling in this pond throughout the spring because we're still holding out hope that Bonnie and Clyde will spawn. This is their last chance because they'll be moving to the big pond soon. And they have shown signs of it, but they hadn't locked in yet. Got a big yawn there. And we got one of the little ninja turtles coming out looking for a leftover pellet. And speaking of turtles, I was out at the pond and saw a newly hatched turtle come up. Happy to see him making the pond his new home. Now I'm back out here a couple days after the stocking, checking in on some of the fish, and you can see we got some threadfin shad schooling around. They are definitely a schooling type fish, and when you see one of them, you typically see a big school of them. But I'm going to be keeping an eye on these over the next few weeks because the threadfins like to spawn on hard objects, and they'll do it in low light situations early in the morning or late in the evening. But you can see here we got a variety of different fish. Some of these may be the fathead minnows, and there's even some really small fish. So I'm not sure if that's some that have just got put in or if those actually hatched here in the pond. But everything's nice and calm here now, and will be chaos here in a few weeks. But if you look close here, you see one of those little tadpoles that are becoming a frog. And I'm not 100% sure what happened, but after a big storm came through the other day, we had a bunch of them floating up near the surface, and I'm assuming that they're dead because they definitely weren't swimming anymore. It looked like some of them were halfway converted to a frog. So that's something that's really interesting. All the fish survived pretty good, but for some reason these tadpoles didn't make it. But I've seen a lot of frogs hanging out around the pond. Let's go check and see if one's up under this boat. Yep, he sure is. He's camouflaged pretty good right there. Another bass snack. So now I'm going to be planting some new crops for the wildlife. Going to start off by cutting down the old winter crops. And I ran a little snake out of the grass. Hopefully that's a rat snake. Got the plow out. We're going to put some crops right here beside the corn. Alright, we're about to do some planting. These soybeans are what the deer tore up last year. That's what had them running around in circles, jumping up and down. Also got some brown top millet, a bunch of fertilizer. So we're going to be planting some more crops for the deer and other wildlife. I just tilled up a bunch of land right here by the corn. Let's check it out. It's starting to come up pretty good. I just used that implement on the tractor to kind of go through and clear out some of these rows. And I'm hoping that as soon as the corn gets a little bit taller, it'll kill off those weeds up under it. So we've got the corn here. I'm going to plant soybeans out here, soybeans right here. And the reason I'm doing it is I want to pull the deer up to where we can see them this fall. So we got the pond here, the cabins there. And then in this area down here, we're going to plant some stuff for the birds like brown top millet, sunflowers. So we should have a variety of food for all the different wildlife. And everybody should be happy. That's the good stuff right there. Beautiful sunset after a long day of planting. Now, a quick update on the two ducks, Allie and Bam Bam. So in the last couple videos, we brought some of the duck eggs back and put them in an incubator at the house. But look at Allie, she built her a new nest and wanted to have some eggs of her own, so we're going to leave her in there with however many eggs she has in her nest. But we do have some good news. We candled some of the eggs back at the house in the incubator, and they are fertilized, so we should have some baby ducks in the next week or two. So Liz put some netting around the fruit trees to keep all the deer out. They've been doing a pretty good number on them, but that should keep them out. And we got the deer coming in to inspect my work, make sure everything's up to par. And it looks like they're happy with what's going to be on the menu this fall. And they still come around to drink out of the pond every night. You can tell there's a lot more bugs this time of year. It's going to make it a little harder to film. And if you look closely, you can also see one of the owls in the field out there in the back. We got Johnny and June coming in hot. And check this out, the blue herons out there eating at night. I've always heard that the herons would eat under a full moon. But man, it's going to be tough on those shad. They got to hide day and night. Look who we got out here today. I believe you call those a little gopher turtle. Out here by the pond and cabin, just easing up the road. Alright, buddy. I'll put you over here out of the road. It is time to feed Mr. Moby. Alright folks, that is going to wrap up this video. Make sure to hit the subscribe button so you can follow along, because we have those bass coming in soon. Also, don't forget to check out Simply Safe, but I hope you all enjoyed this video, and we will see you all next time.